And my big fear with this movie, like, is if it doesn't do well,
it's doing well.
But it might not do as well as we all think, as well as the internet makes it seem. And really, monetarily, it was a very expensive movie. And my fear is that if it doesn't do, it will do okay. It'll make profit for sure. It's going to profit. But if it doesn't do amazing, my fear is that we won't get another. I actually see it from a filmmaker standpoint, less than the comic book standpoint. We might not get another R-rated with no stars action movie for that amount of. That's my fear, is that if it doesn't do awesome, it might not happen.
Well, but
again.
there's now enough with like the Dark Knight and Batman.
PG-13. I'm just thinking.
Oh, you mean R?
Didn't Slash Film say that it's on pace to get 60 million its first weekend?
But that's not Iron Man 2. That's
Right.
not.
Well, it's also not
it's
summer.
But this was also
winter.
supposed to be.
What did you think of the movie?
Yeah, regardless of that. I don't think I could say I loved it or hated it or liked it, or I don't think I can use an adjective. I can say this. I thought the fight sequences were awesome. Totally awesome. I thought Zack Snyder brought a really cool tone. He took it all very serious. And the comic book is all primary colors. The comic book, a direct translation of the comic could have been
Dick Tracy.
Yeah. But the feeling of the comic book isn't that, and the tones are all muted and desaturated and gritty and real. The production design is awesome. There's so many great nooks and crannies details that make things feel great. And one of the great things about the comic book is the depth of stuff in the frame, and Zack Snyder brought to the movie, he didn't just lift things from the comic, there was a moment where, I think it's Ozymandias is speaking, and the Two Towers.
Yeah.
Two Towers?
Twin Towers?
Twin Towers. The Two Towers is the sequel to Fellowship of the Ring.
Yes.
The Twin Towers in a blimp was like, it said it was like going towards the Twin Towers, and I'm like, wow, you could really read that, just that frame could mean a lot about what this film is about.
Can I comment on that real quick?
Sure.
One of the things that leads me to it's a shame people don't read the bookness of it, is a lot of those things that were in Dave Gibbons' frames.
Right.
Are in the movie, but they stick out much more.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that you only see when you reread the comic. In the movie, it's like it can't not be obvious.
Right.
Right.
Which is a little bit of a shame, I felt.
Here's my thing, and I will say that I have read the comic a few times, so I too found it impossible I was not getting a story, I was seeing how it was executed.
Right.
So it is really tough to gauge the story of the movie. But I will say that I really did feel like it certainly was, some things were directly, I don't think that Alan Moore would be happy with this film. Alan Moore has gone and said, like, I'll never watch it and blah, 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 blah.
I don't think so we would either.
And I felt like, man, I don't think
it's a film.
I don't think
wouldn't be happy with it.
I don't think Zack Snyder directly lifting dialogue and frames and all that stuff would make the maker proud. I think if Zack Snyder had thought about, and the writers and everyone thought about what the themes and the ideas that Watchmen tries to articulate, and said, I'm going to make a movie about that stuff, that would have done, because I felt that the movie was lacking soul. It had all the stuff and had the people saying the same words, but it did not have the depth, and some of the things that were removed, certainly, like the fact that there's no Black Freighter story, which really tied things together for me in reading the comic book, the Hollis Mason book, all that stuff brought that, and that was not in the movie.
There's going to be a Hollis Mason documentary, evidently.
Totally. But that we'll see on DVD and all that stuff. But I really felt that there was something missing in the movie. There was a lot of heart that I wasn't getting, and I had the same problem with the film that I had with Sin City, which did a very similar thing, where the great thing, and I say this all the time in comics, but a comic book frame is a representation. That frame represents many moments in one moment, and the dialogue represents a conversation just in one, and the comic is so well written, but people in a room, the blocking, the way people are standing in a room and saying those words in the movie felt very forced, and the superhero outfits and the superhero action moments in the comic book felt like commentary, and in the movie felt like parody or glorification as opposed to irony.
Let me disagree with you on the heart issue, simply because I think save for one, the performances in this film do that for me. They bring that.
There was a performance you didn't like?
Yeah, and it was Miss Jupiter. I don't remember who the name of the actress
Molly
is.
Ackerman or something, or Molly Ackerman, or
No.
She plays the mom.
Oh, Carla Gugino.
Yeah.
Carly
Yeah.
Gugino, yeah.
Not. Sadly, I felt like she did not live up to the rest of the cast. But what's his name? Dr. Manhattan.
Billy Crudup.
Billy Crudup brought what Johnny Lee Haley. What's his name?
Jackie Earl
Haley.
Yeah.
I'm butchering them. What Rorschach brought and what Dr. Manhattan brought to those characters,
Even Patrick Wilson. I mean, that is
that's a character that's a lot easier, I think, to accomplish that with, because it's not an easy thing, but it's already a character that you're sympathetic with. With Rorschach, when he said, you're not. I'm not locked up in here with you. You're locked up. I was like,
that moment was amazing.
Shattered my spine.
Let me just say about Rorschach, I don't understand why Christian Bale sounds ridiculous with that voice, and he sounded
I think that
amazing
performance
and owned it.
is equal to what Heath Ledger did. I feel like he was amazing in this movie. I also want to say, and it's going to come up again when we talk about TV, is it is so difficult to play
what are you talking about?
Emptiness, lack of personality,
Right.
and what Billy Crudup does with Dr. Manhattan is, I think, so difficult and so well done.
Because it's almost like he conveys being sad that he has no emotion without showing any emotion.
Yeah, he
in the
plays
weirdest
empty.
way. He
plays like an empty vessel.
Yeah, I love that. I love the movie, and I think it's accessible. It's long. It didn't feel long.
I thought you were gonna say it felt long, but I'm glad
it doesn't feel long. It is long. You know what I mean? Like there's.
I don't know.
Difference.
Could your parents see this movie and like it? I don't know.
I think my dad could definitely see
There's
this
a
movie
lot
and like
missing.
it. I think my mom.
I think there's a lot missing in this movie. I think even that, as beautiful as that beginning is, you don't really ever get a sense that it's a world with superheroes. Like it's all
the
very.
Keen Act is mentioned, but there's no explanation that superheroes have been out.
There's a lot that's just sort of like you spend time on scenes and characters that is very odd. If you weren't to be betrothed into that comic book, you would not make the movie this way. You would not tell your story this way. This is not.
That's Alan Moore's point.
And I agree with him. I agree with him for this movie. I really do. There's so much that this story was better told with that layer, with that many layers that and for the movie they could have told a good story with the same themes, but not the exact same way. Change the way you did it.
That's the reason it was called unfilmable, because the entire idea of the comic is about being a comic.
Right.
It's like it is. What can I do with frame by frame storytelling and all those things where things are mirror images of each other, you lose in a movie. But if you do change those things, like I'm so curious of what you thought a Paul Greengrass version of this would be.
Wow. Cool. Now,
but he was going to modernize it, and that would all be terrible to a guy like me who reveres and fetishizes this story.
Let me just sum up with this: that Christopher Nolan did not directly translate dialogue and words onto his screen. He did. Yes, there's moments.
He's not taking a Batman story. He wrote his own.
I don't think he would. Right. But I think that does justice to the Batman story.
Well, but there's also
the character story.
There's too much. This is a script.
I understand.
This could be looked at as a script, as a piece of art to convert to a different meaning.
I could say with any other great movie that's adapted from a comic, I think even History of Violence, even though I didn't love that movie, I think compare History of Violence, the movie, to the comic, they didn't just do the thing because they're not working in that medium. Use what the medium will bring to that story, and don't.
But you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't.
Because if you don't, then all the people who love the book are going to be like, "Where's that thing?"
I don't know. I don't know about that.
I don't know.
I think it's the best possible. I think it's the best possible adaptation of this work that I could ever hope for.
I loved it. Fitzies.